Hello, my Astro family. This is Lada from astrolada.com, and these are your 2020 yearly horoscopes. Thank you for choosing me to lead you through this year, and I'll try to be as comprehensive and as interesting as possible. And 2020, this is an intro for all the signs, and basically, I want to tell you what you have to prepare in order to get the most out of those horoscopes. As you know, if you've known me from before, we don't only look at the sun sign. Everyone knows I'm a Libra because I'm born in October, I'm an Aries because I'm born in April. Well, this is just your sun sign. But actually, there are way more personal signs, those of the ascendant, which change every 2.5 hours, and those of your moon sign, which changes every 2.5 days. So I would like you to check your 2020 horoscope, starting with the ascendant sign, the moon sign, and then the sun sign. They are basically, all those horoscopes are good for the three signs. And some of you might have the same sun and moon sign, or ascendant and moon, or whatever, but most people usually have the sun, moon, and ascendant in different signs. And the order of importance is always the ascendant. After that, the moon, especially for women or people born at night, and the sun, especially for men and people born during the day. So, how do you find out what your ascendant, sun, and moon is? Very easy. You need to know your time of birth. If you don't know your time of birth, then listen to your sun sign only. But maybe you can be able to find the moon sign as well. But those of you who know your time of birth, I'll share my screen with you so you see what to do, how to calculate it. You just need to go to my website, astrolada.com, and go to this here, to the free birth chart and transits. And then enter your details here. Oops, waiting for it to load up. So write your name, I'll write mine, but I'll put some other, I'm not gonna put my details. Write the minute, the hour, let's say New York. Continue. Then you can select here which New York is it. Let's say it's somewhere in New York Hospital, whatever. And continue, and you will see the chart. Here it is. Sorry, it's taking a little bit longer to chart. Oops. This is a chart. All you have to look here is at the planetary details. You see? And only the first three, where it's abbreviated, ascendant, sun, and moon. I want you to mark down the degree basically of your ascendant, sun, and moon, and the sign. You don't need to listen to you don't need to write down the second, like 8 minutes, 8 degrees and 11 minutes. Just remember, for example, that this person has 8 degrees in Libra ascendant, sun at 15 degrees Virgo, and moon at 27 degrees Scorpio. And then check, because I use specific degrees, because all the planets don't influence us all the time. Some, for example, will be influenced only, some planets will influence only 4 or 5 degrees from Scorpio. And I want you to listen. When I start giving degrees, they'll be written on the screen. I want you to pay attention and check, oh, is this my degree? If your moon is in Scorpio, for example, your ascendant or sun or moon, and this is how we're going to go through it. And you're going to get a lot more, way more in depth, way more specific than any general yearly horoscopes. And that's how we're going to make astrology more real, not just popular magazine astrology. This is more, it goes towards how proper astrologers work. And before I start with each of the signs, I just want you to join me in a little prayer for this year 2020, to bless it, to collectively join our energies. Dear angels, dear Father, Mother, Creator of the universe, thank you for allowing us to be here. Thank you for giving us this amazing art, astrology. Thank you for allowing us to peek into your thoughts, to peek into your plans for us for the future. You're so gracious and loving, dear Creator, dear God, dear Mother. You're so gracious to give us those signs, those signatures, so we can prepare, so we can know what your will is. Help us live according to your divine will in 2020. If there are any challenges for some of us ahead, help us accept them with dignity. Help us transform the qualities in us that bring on those challenges. Or if it's something karmic that we have to bear, help us accept it with humbleness. For those of us that have good moments ahead, those of us that divine blessings will be poured, help us stay humble, help us stay grateful, and help us develop more love for each other and for humanity and for God, so we don't become too proudful. Help us, you, this year 2020, touch our hearts, whether through challenges or whether, and both will exist, challenges or positive developments for all of us. Let them all lead us to more love and connection with your divine presence. Amen. Sun, moon, or rising in Libra 2020 forecast. All right, let's always start how I like to start, with the position of Saturn, because it's actually the underlining tone or background that everything is developing on. This is where the most lessons are happening, the repeated lessons. This is usually where the biggest focus of efforts for us is for the year. And if you've seen my 2019 videos, you remember that I told you that Saturn was in your fourth house, and it continues to be in 2020 in your fourth house. And the fourth house, as you know, it's the house of home, family, and property, and citizenship, and place of living. So one of the most fundamental and important matters that Libra has been dealing with for the past 2 years have been concerning family, parenthood, place of living. I can tell you my husband is Libra rising. So this has been the predominant focus for him. And of course, Saturn is kind of a positive planet for Libra people, especially for Libra rising. To a lesser degree, Sun and Moon, but also because Saturn in ancient astrology was considered the so-called benefic planet for Libra, because it rules good houses there. So yes, it will still give some difficulties when it transits the fourth house, but the final result, which you are going to see now in 2020 with the final stay of Saturn in the fourth house, will be very constructive and positive in regards to your home, place of living, family. And the past years might have given a lot of responsibilities with parenthood duties, for example. A lot of responsibilities with some of you had to take care of a parent. Some of you were focusing on building a house. I have a few Libra people that's what they were doing. For my husband, it was moving back and forth and having a very slow period deciding where we have to live, because Saturn always slows down whatever it's transiting through. So if you've been building a property, for example, it might have taken longer than you expected, more repeated effort, but it doesn't mean it's not going to work out beautifully. It's just whatever Saturn passes, it brings more regulations and rules. So if it's something with your property, for example, you had to, and you want to quickly move to a new place, or buy a new house, or sell an old one, you had to encounter a lot of rules, for example, bureaucracy, checkups for security, for strong foundations and things like that. So maybe that's a bit frustrating, but it guarantees that the final result will be more stable, more lasting, more enduring. So so indeed, if you're trying to sell or buy, it dragged out, it had a lot of, you need to put a lot of repeated effort as well. Or some of you just meant that they focused a lot of effort on doing their garden. Fourth house rules the gardens, any property or land that we're connected with, or building a fence. I had some Libras that they were dealing with fixing their fences, building fences. And that's what my husband has been doing for the last 2 years, parenting duties, cutting off trees in the garden, calling contractors to, and the plans for 2020 is actually to renovate a house, hopefully buy a house. And we bought one already, but it was always kind of a long, prolonged process with, delays were fully what the focus is. And if you are in some career that's connected to property, to land as well, often it indicates that there was a lot of hard work being done. But again, the final results, you see them now 2020 with the last day of Saturn in the fourth house. But, especially if there was some, because Saturn is, after all, generally can indicate blockages of some sort, even though in your case, it will bring positive final results. But if it created some problems with your family, for example, because Saturn can bring to the surface resentments from the past. Or if there is something that's not going well already, uh, it becomes very acutely noticeable. Saturn lowers the vibration. So if there was any problems with family members already, mother, father, extended family, very likely they were very obvious in the last 2 years, and you were dealing with those sometime in the last 2 years. But 2020, there is still a little bit of that, but a lot more positive developments, like the conclusion of that, seeing the results of the work that you've been doing in regards to home, to family, with family members. Um, Sometimes people have to take responsibility for a parent as well, or a parent was going through a tough time. Like, for example, my husband's mother, which is the fourth house, was having tough time finding a job, staying on place, so she stayed to live with us. So it wasn't like she was a responsibility, but she was going through a tougher period, and we were helping. My husband was helping out by her living with us. And often it can indicate that in your living environment, which is the fourth house, there might be elderly people or older people. And again, the more negative manifestation is some structural damage that you had to fix with house, with property and such. Fourth house also rules basically getting citizenship, or these documents with becoming uh, stable, rooted somewhere, So if Saturn's been transiting in your fourth house, for some of you trying, for example, to get citizenship somewhere, it might have been a prolonged process. It might have been some legalizing documents as a citizen that you belong in a place, or there might have been some delays to finding the right place, for example. And again, 2020 is when this will be solved, when you're going to see the results of that, of the repeated efforts that you had to do in the past couple of years in regards to some of those matters. Fourth house is also our emotional state. It's a very, as you see, it's at the bottom of the horoscope. It's our foundation, what we're standing on. Of course, it's our early family life. So when Saturn transits, the issues from early family life might come to the surface, and they're usually more painful ones. They're usually ones that kind of boxed us in a certain worldview and in a certain state of patterns in our life. And usually, while Saturn transits the fourth house, those of you who are inclined to be more psychologically introspective, start dealing with those patterns. They learn things that they have forgotten of. They focus on things that might not be so pleasant to remember. The same happened also with my husband. I'm just taking all of this from experience and from a few Libras that are around me, and it's all like it's been happening. He found out some things. He was struggling and trying to work through, because the key word for Saturn is to work through, to accept, and to detach yourself. First, it's painful. Maybe you found out something about your family. Maybe you found out that your mom and dad were not in love. Maybe you found out that there was something even more painful happening there. Maybe you remembered some painful things. That's what, and you were wondering, why does it feel heavy? You realize certain things from your family that have been limiting you, in extreme cases that have brought you debilitating, a lack of emotional stability and lack of foundation in life. And the work that you've been doing, and you still have to do, but it's the conclusion of it in 2020, is to find acceptance. Because first with Saturn is pain, then it is rejection, the few stages that you go, maybe frustration, resentment. So maybe such topics around family roles with parents or whatever initially. And now the final stages of Saturn staying a sign in a house is acceptance, detachment, and basically that's what allows you can't fix the past. Maybe you can't even make it better. You can sometimes even improve the relationship currently, but when you find detachment and acceptance, you find peace as well, and you heal certain wounds, and that's also working through family karma. Saturn is planet of karma. Fourth house is the ancestors, not only your mom and dad. This is the extended lineage of ancestors. And often, there is one saying that I saw yesterday on Facebook. They say when you heal yourself, you heal the ancestral karma and the pain of your ancestors. Because 50% of our fate is, we take it from, in our faith, meaning like our talents, our health, and all of that, we take it from the family karma and the ancestors and the circumstances of life and the psychological, kind of slant of the mind. The other 50% is from our own past karma from previous lifetimes. So you see a big part of why sometimes love is not good in our life, why sometimes we're limited with money, why we have certain diseases or predisposition to such. Why we think in a certain way comes because, or why we are, some people almost like cursed because maybe a grandfather killed someone, maybe a grandfather or a grandmother had an abortion or was raped and couldn't heal, or there are always dramas in the family, or I'm not saying such extreme things, but maybe a repeating pattern of divorce in family, and we kind of carry that karma with us like a pattern, like a DNA in our blood, in our cells. But when Saturn transits the fourth house for 2.5 years, it starts triggering those patterns. And those of you who are more self-aware, they start analyzing them, maybe working with a psychologist to work through those, to understand and get to the bottom of that. And it's not necessary to do some, with professional and stuff, but again, it's about the acceptance, forgiving, and letting go, rather than festering in resentments and saying, oh, why were they like that? And now this is happening to me. It's about this wisdom at the end, because Saturn is a very wise, very occult planet, that it's higher vibrations. It's lower vibrations, it's all the miseries in the world. But its higher vibrations is the wisdom that comes from all the miseries and ignorance and acceptance of that it's part of life, So maybe such issue, and what happens when Saturn transits the fourth house is that you become aware, or you are almost like working through the karma of your ancestors, and you're paying it off, or you are dissolving it by gradually and very slowly, because Saturn is a slow planet, again going through that process of acceptance and forgiveness, or sometimes you have to with certain, like, to do something for an ancestor, to do something for a family, to to be in a situation that is blocking, that repeats a situation of an ancestor in a similar situation, basically that they had, and for you to experience it and pay off the karma. So it's one of those karmic houses when Saturn transits that can feel very emotionally painful, often very internalized, that others don't see. You see, this is not a visible house, it's not outside, it's very internal there, that you're working, gradually burning the karma of your family. And Saturn is also, the depiction of Saturn is death with scythe. So it cuts off things. And what happens is that a lot of you kind of have a unique opportunity in 2020. It finishes, is the last time Saturn is there, to heal their own karma, and they heal generations behind the karma of their whole ancestors, so it doesn't have to transfer to their own children or their own future. And they can cut off the connection, they can cut off those cords with negative past patterns and karmic lineage, so to speak. And on the material world, sometimes in the extreme, I've seen some people with Saturn transit in the fourth house, they can actually cut off connection with their roots. They can actually say, basta, enough, especially if ancestors or parents are being predatory, and they're not, and they're being in some way suppressing. So in extreme cases, maybe you had to, or you're in the process of cutting connections with the roots. Another example I can give you is that when Saturn transited my fourth house from the ascendant 20 years ago, almost 19 years ago, I left my birthplace, again, cutting roots. And actually the year before that, when Saturn was still transiting my fourth house, we were having extreme scandals with my family. It was just intolerable. I just wanted to run away. It's just like, for my family, it's kind of more aggression. That is my karma. And so I just was like, I can't tolerate that. And I had an opportunity and I left the country. So often you can move when Saturn transits the fourth house. And usually it's not like some small move. It's a move that is quite significant. It's not just moving from your mom's flat in the opposite flat or something like that. Sometimes it can be leaving the country or leaving the town of your birth. And it can feel lonely sometimes as well. And, you know, in such process, the moment I left, I felt nostalgic and sad. But that's what sometimes is needed, you know, especially if, and I felt like a bit cut off from roots. It doesn't mean you always stay cut off from your roots, but sometimes this is what's necessary there to weaken the rope of the karma with family and ancestors. All right, and the most positive way is, as I said, building house, having responsibility for children, as parenthood, you know, and this is a good thing because something constructive is coming at the end. But every time, even if it's been a painful process and the less savory manifestations of Saturn in the fourth house have been happening for you, it again has its final goal, and the lesson of it is not to become resentful, to detach, to accept. And again, it continues a little bit in 2020, but with a much better positive outcome because Jupiter will join the fourth house as well. We'll speak about that in a little bit. I just wanted to mention last thing. Fourth house is feelings and emotions. Sometimes we can have like feelings of passive aggressive resentments when Saturn transits the fourth. So, and that we don't express directly because it's a house that is hidden, it's private there, you know. And sometimes we can feel just more down emotionally because the fourth house rules the heart, here, the, you know, the feelings chakra. It's in Vedic astrology is known as the house of happiness. And this is not like luck or something. This is this inner sense of peace and calm, that you're rooted, that you're grounded, and Saturn can cut your connection or limit your access to such emotional happiness. So if you've been feeling more down and on yourself and more depressed in the past 2 years, or sometime maybe for some of you started just last year, or it's currently very potent because Saturn is still there. If you've been feeling like, you know, yeah, this kind of a lower access to emotional happiness, sometimes even, you know, addictions can stem from that, emotional addictions, physical addictions. I'm not saying this is the typical thing, but if you have been feeling that, there is a rescue for you 2020. Jupiter is joining there to bring a big healing and a big sense of belonging and feeling happy inside, you know, so don't worry, this is also going to change. What else is, oh, my light here, the sun came out. Just a second. I'm just gonna do something. Okay, I think that's better. Oh, excuse me. Okay, but for a lot of you, because Saturn has been transiting in Capricorn, Capricorn is a sign that is constructive, that wants to streamline, to, for example, downsize. I've seen a lot of some people with Saturn transit in the fourth house, especially in Capricorn, they want to downsize their place of living. They want to simplify how they live, their daily, you know, their home environment, for example. And often it can be also time when a member of the family leaves, in extreme cases, departs for the other world to go home to their real home above, you know, or in more typical cases, it's like a child might leave, or you can be living with someone and you then have to downsize and live with a family member less. I'm not saying death necessarily, don't think that. In very extreme cases, this is what it is. And Saturn continues to be there 2020. There's still some of those things that we're, as Libras, you're working through. But you know, the final result usually is, which you're going to see in 2020, that you've removed the complexities from your emotional life. You've removed the certain resentments from the past, that you have removed too many responsibilities by becoming more efficient. Saturn teaches, first it brings a lot of responsibility in this fourth house, you know, and hard work. But then by the end of this process, you have a much more streamlined and more effective and efficient and organized daily environment, much more organized, routinized, and cleaner and simpler, you know, home life and family life of sorts. And if you're someone who works in fourth house careers like property, like caring, like nursing, you know, Maybe you had a lot of responsibilities in the last 2 years. They stay a bit more. Maybe it felt a bit too heavy. But this year from 2020 starts becoming easy, and you're going to see the positive results of having put so many efforts in those fourth house careers. All right. And as I said, I just want to say that some of you that are later Libras will have it, as I said, most of the Libras will be having a release from the more difficult Saturn responsibilities and lessons through the fourth house that we talked about. But there is a small batch of Libras that are the last 5 degrees of Libra, basically with their sun, moon, or ascendant from 25 to 30 degree in Libra. 25 to 30 degree in Libra, which means that they were born, if it's their sun in Libra, from the 18th to around the 23rd of October. So you see the five last days of Libra, if it's your sun sign there, that Saturn is going to do the exact square through your fourth house, squaring your sun, moon, or ascendant there this year in 2020. So everything that I talked about now, you're going to notice it more potently, and you're going to, this is when you're going to experience some of those things that I was talking about. This is when they're going to culminate, you know. So maybe starting to build a house, or maybe having extra responsibilities because of family duties and blah, blah, and blah, blah. And they can feel, if it's your sun, for example, if you're born from the 18th to the 23rd of October, you can still feel more, you know, they can, even in your career, because the sun naturally symbolizes career, symbolizes work, you know, you can feel some pressure, for example, or more duties and responsibilities, some delays there that you have to work harder through, or some dissatisfaction, for example. But again, it can be very constructive because Saturn is in its own sign, and then it gives the final results are very effective, efficient, structured, well organized. There might be the need to simplify your work because you receive a lot of work responsibility as well. That puts pressure also in your family life, and because of that, you have to be more systematic. Also, the sun, if you're born those days, 18th to the 23rd, rules men. And confidence, sometimes you can feel like your confidence is a bit, and vitality and energy is a little bit lowered when Saturn aspects the sun. Because again, Saturn wants to slow you down for something. And important males in your life, fathers, husbands, bosses, might be of more Saturnian nature currently, that put that demand more responsibility, or that you can feel more dissatisfaction towards them, or that they're going through some obstacles and you feel it somehow, it will affect your life as well. Or that they have a lot of duties and hard work in some way, that they're going through some maturation process. Also, if it's your moon in Libra from 25 to 30 degrees, Saturn squaring it again, everything that I talked about, family and stuff before that, it's going to be very potent for you, but also especially for you because the moon naturally rules family. The fourth from the moon is also family. So they can be sometimes also feeling a bit of loneliness and isolation when Saturn aspects the moon, and also the sun and the ascendant, you know. And maybe with the mother, there might be some responsibility or something, or some issue that you have to resolve, some emotion with some emotional relationship, that there might be some, or because of many responsibilities at home, it's putting pressure on your emotional life and such things. But again, the final result can be very positive. Listen to the first part when I'm talking all about Saturn transiting the fourth house. If you're a woman, the moon is your female hormone. Sometimes just check your health overall. If when Saturn squares the sun or moon or ascendant, you know, especially because of emotional issues, there might be some repercussions with your health, especially conditions that like hypo rather than hyper, that something underproduces, something slows down. And again, by the end of the year, if you're those degrees, it will get removed. Saturn will pass away. So those conditions or those symptoms will disappear. And if it's your ascendant, Saturn, everything that I talked about in the first part, you know, this is from 25 to 30 degrees in Libra. this is valid for you. And the ascendant is also the physical body. You can notice that you lose weight. My husband lost weight in the past 2 years, maybe because of responsibilities at home and such stuff. You can also notice that you can restrain yourself a bit more somehow. You can notice that, sorry, this flat. Yeah, and because it's a squaring the first and seventh house cusp, you can notice that this year, if you're from 25 to 30 degrees Libra rising, you can notice, for example, that it can be more pressure on your relationships, so some kind of a restructuring, or because of family responsibility, there is some pressure. Maybe your partner is working also very hard. Maybe there's a bit of a detachment between you and your partner, or disconnection, again, maybe because of family responsibilities and such. Or you can notice that around your environment there are older people, Saturnian in nature, that in your environment, or that you attract relationships with older partners, for example. For my husband, it was that I was putting a lot of pressure on him to take care of family because I was working a lot. Saturn squaring the fourth house, the first house cusp, All right, but there is a lot of good news. Oh, yes, and I wanted to say as well that for a little bit this year, Saturn goes into the sign of Aquarius, which becomes your fifth house here. You see here, this is the fifth house. So this is Saturn has been in the fourth house, and for a little bit only, from March 21st, till basically for about 2.5 months, 3 months at most, 3 months, yeah, till, so April, May, yeah, and June, Saturn goes into, is it? Let me just check so I don't mislead you. I want to give you the exact time. So yes, Saturn goes, so yeah, for about 3 months exactly, April, May, and June, fully it will be in your fifth house. You're going to get a taste of what it's going to be like in the next 2 years after that. But then after that, after June, Saturn comes back to the fourth house to help you finish some things with the fourth house, their family, home, all of those things that we talked about. So you'd go back after June till almost the end of the year into that mode again, but in the spring a little bit for the northern hemisphere, you get a taster for Saturn through the fifth house. Saturn will be again, it's one of its own signs. The final result will be very constructive and good, but there will be the need to restrict entertainment, for example, and especially who will feel that, especially those of you Libras that in the first 2 degrees of Libra, so 24th, 25th of September type of thing, 23rd, 24th, 25th, or who have their ascendants on the moon, basically from 0, 1, 2 degrees, maybe 3 will also feel it. And the fifth house, and Saturn will make trine with your planet, so it's not such a big deal. Saturn will make trine to your sun, to your moon, or to your ascendant. So you're not like the last 5% that we talked about, 5 degrees. You're more like, yes, there will be still responsibilities and duties, decreased ability to have fun, to enjoy yourself because of the to party, limited access to, or decreased access to romantic, tryst and romantic fun because of certain responsibilities again, but because you're doing something constructive, because whatever responsibilities you're having, it is a trine, they're going to have a long-lasting positive results and constructive results in your life. Some of you might feel that you want to turn a hobby or passion of yours, which is the fifth house as well, what we're gifted about naturally, what we really enjoy doing, you can turn it into a business, you can turn it into something constructive, or of such sort. You can start getting those first inklings. A lot of you might have, fifth house is our original ideas, it's kind of our creativity, so you might start working hard on some original creative idea to turn it into a reality. It might take a bit longer, into 2021, till Saturn passes there again, to see the results of that. But this is when you're doing the first consistent effort, starting the spring into this fifth house. Of course, there might be more responsibilities with children. Again, as I said, they might, and again, I'm not saying there will be no romantic and fun times for you when Saturn transits the fifth house, but it's almost like you put it at the back burner so you can create something more, you know, organize, something more constructive in your life. But and I'm talking about all Libras now, because Saturn enters the fifth house April, May, and June. So you're all gonna feel this for a little bit. And what can happen is, for example, that you have a structured romantic time or fun time, that you really have to pre-plan it very well. This is the word of Saturn. In extreme cases, yes, it can block it. But for most people, it will require a lot of, you know, preparation, or having to be very organized because there are other responsibilities they have to tend to. And almost like willing desire to kind of curtail having fun and those kind of hobbies and romantic stuff. And actually, you can still have romantic experiences when Saturn transits the fifth house, maybe through repeated efforts over and over and over. Or maybe you have to, you know, make a date, like make a plan and have a date on Friday with your romantic partner. Yes, it's not spontaneous, but this is what is necessary. And you'll feel that in 2021 probably as well, and Saturn is still there, but you'll notice it now, the middle of the, you know, April to June. And romantic partners, you'll notice, some of you, that they might be older or more mature. And that you'd prefer the company of such people. I remember when Saturn was transiting my fifth house, my boyfriend was 24 years older. I met someone 24 years, and I was very happy, to be honest. And it was, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean like lack of love life and no sex and such things. It has to correspond to the Saturnian nature, which is either more constructive, more organized, centered about work, or, you know, with people that have Saturnian nature, Capricorns, or older or more authoritarian. All right. But I had the good news for you that now Jupiter is moving into your fourth house. The whole 2020 almost, Jupiter will be there. You see, Saturn is there. Maybe it's better to do it this way. Saturn is there in your fourth house. Most of the year, it goes after June the 30th. It goes April, May, and June in the fifth, and comes back again to the end of the year. But the whole time, Jupiter, from the beginning of 2020, is there. And Jupiter is the great benefic. So all those things that we talked about that were probably more difficult with Saturn in the fourth house, just like with us, with my husband, it was responsibilities with home and family, moving back and forth, not, you know, doing renovations and stuff. And, you know, now you're going to see the wonderful results in 2020, because there is a rule in ancient astrology: when both Saturn and Jupiter are in the same sign or respect the same sign, this is when you manifest. This is when you see results. Jupiter brings new opportunities. Saturn crystallizes them and makes them a reality. But Jupiter will heal the pain, the emotional pain that was happening, or the emotional almost dryness, kind of. Sometimes it happens, like you might have felt blocked to express feelings naturally, suppressed in some way, you know, emotionally, maybe some resentments. But now Jupiter comes to heal family karma as well, comes to heal painful relationships with family. So 2020 is the year when there will be such an improvement in your whole family life. First, Jupiter will alleviate your responsibilities. Yes, Saturn will still be there, but now you'll do them with more joy. Now you're going to start seeing the results of those responsibilities. Maybe you can get some, if you're a parent, you can get some support and help with your children now, so they don't feel like such a burden. Like for us, it was fourth house rules, babies, and taking care of either old people or babies, such that are very weak, such that you have to nurture, you know. So with Jupiter coming there, that year is when all this comes to be resolved, when you receive help in such endeavors. For example, if you've been building a house or trying to relocate, now you're going to find a place that feels like home. Now you can complete a building project, or now it can start moving fast in 2020. Or now, if you've been having some problems with your home or whatever, they will be resolved. Now you're going to find the place that, and that I'm so excited, because we still don't know where we're going to want to live. And I blame my husband with Saturn transiting his fourth house. It's been blocking it. So you can find the place you want to live, the place you want to belong. And because Saturn is still there, it means that you still have to do the hard work of all this. It's just not going to fall in your lap, you know, but Jupiter will just make it so clear to you what it is, where is it, and some of you can expand, move to bigger places now. You see, till now Saturn wanted to downsize. Saturn can have made your living environment very rudimentary or very kind of, you know, not so luscious and luxurious, but now Jupiter comes and says, okay, enough of this fasting, enough of those limitations. I'm going to see the result. I'm going to give you the results. If you're in careers that the fourth house, caring, bodyguards, local police, teachers in local schools as well, nursing, property, and such, anything interior decoration. Now you can complete some beautiful project, or now if there was some maybe too many responsibilities there, but little results. Now you're going to start seeing the results. Now there will be unlocking and unblocking and recognition and satisfaction with what you've done, and opportunities maybe to sell more properties, bigger ones or whatever. So fantastic time in 2020 for any family and home and place of living. And that's even for those Libras that are the last 4 or 5 degrees, because Jupiter is also in their fourth house. They will, you know, all those issues can come up, but they would quickly resolve them because Jupiter is also there. The problems come and the answer come. And so building houses, moving, relocating, finding your place where you belong, starting a family for some of you. Saturn was trying to, you know, maybe Saturn cut the number of family members. Now Jupiter can expand it, bring an extra family member or something like that. You can expand the house, you can, you know, and all such things. And again, as I said, it's also emotionally feeling more happiness, feeling grounded, feeling like you belong, feeling like you've healed a big ancestral pain that you've carried or that's been blocking you. Good stuff. Also, fourth house is vehicles in ancient astrology. So some of you can indicate if they've been having problems repeatedly with vehicles or whatever, that they can now, you know, get a new one or extra one. So hopefully you like that. Then we continue with the very important thing. Venus, the planet that rules you because you're Libra, is going to turn retrograde this year. So it means it's going to stay in the same sign, basically from April to August. And it's going to stay in the same, in your 9th house, in Gemini. So Venus, what is it? April, May, June, July, 4 months, it stays here in this 9th house. It almost becomes like an outer planet. Usually Venus whizzes by through a sign in 20 to 30 days, but this time it is staying there, and this time it is being, you know, and it's making a trine to your sign. So I think this Venus retrograde will be quite beneficial for you. Don't be afraid. It just means that you have to put extra effort at something 9th house related. Because when a planet goes retrograde, it requires 3 times more efforts and 3 times more focus, because a retrograde planet is 3 times closer to Earth. Usually when it's direct, it's on the other side of the sun. The sun is between us and that planet, Venus in this case. When Venus is retrograde, it's going to be between the sun and the Earth, so it's very close to Earth. So you really have to, when it's so close, it means it's sitting on top of you as a Libra, and you know, and it's telling you, this is the area, this is what you have to do now. I'm very close, I'm putting a lot more gravity here, and everything else will be left on the backside for a few months, especially in the period of Venus retrograde, which is from May the 13th till June the 25th. But this whole process will entail some endeavor starting from April, and you're going to see the results at the end of July, the start of August, when the whole process, when Venus finally moves from the 9th house. But the most intense period of work and most important events will be around the retrograde period, sometimes in the middle of June, sometimes at the start or middle of June, May 13th, maybe not on May 13th, you know, you can feel it in the pre-shadow period, but around May and towards the end of June, the most, and in this period, May till June, this is when the most pivotal events will be happening, that they will escalate, the most strongly felt one. So what is this about? Because Venus is you. So what is happening? The ninth house is higher education. Some of you might be rethinking a certain line of education. Some of you might decide to change if you're studying something, you know, if you're a university student or whatever, or even if you're a professional, you can decide to to brush up on your knowledge and take some educational course, for example. And during the retrograde period, you have to study really hard on that. You have to make the 3 times extra effort and apply yourself in this new theory. Ninth house is theoretical knowledge, you know, maybe some degree. Great time for it this year. You know, Jupiter, Venus is making trines to your first house, so it's going to help you on your path to achieve what you want. But also some of you might kind of decide to go back on something they've studied in the past and dig deep into it. Maybe you studied astrology before, some other high knowledge, and you're just gonna really deepen your knowledge in it and dig deep and go more intense. And that's gonna help you find and align with your mission, because the first house trine that Venus is making from the ninth house, the first house is your mission in life, your path in life. Also, some of you can mean that Venus retrograde in the ninth house, that you have some project to do around the spring for the northern hemisphere of April to August that's connected to teaching, that is connected to academics or to teaching project of some sort, or learning project. And funny enough, or to some higher knowledge of some sort, or some theory, you know. And so this is also a good thing to do. You know, retrograde planet doesn't mean don't do it. If anything, it means put 3 times more efforts. Or maybe you're preparing for that. Or the ninth house also means foreign countries, faraway places. So say, for example, you are into a career that involves working with foreign people, or into a career that involves teaching, or into a career that involves coaching, into a career that's an astrologer, for example. So this will be a very busy period. Very busy period, reconnecting with maybe studying some of the things, delving deeper, or maybe your import-export. You know, ninth house is also that. So that will be some important project that is happening. The final results will be quite good because Venus is making a trine. But you'll have to but the retrograde period can feel a bit more intense, stressful. You have to redo the project and stuff like that. You have to put extra efforts. The ninth house is also people that are far away from us, foreigners and stuff, or people that are on different social class or from a different state from us. They're not from our local environment. So some of you might be working on some project that involves such people, that involves such, you know, especially women, because Venus rules women. Some of you might be revisiting some old countries that they've been before, some favorite places, or another state that you've been to. So you might be revisiting, retrograde to revisit, or you might be seeing and revisiting and seeing again some women or friends that live far away, you know, ninth house. Maybe that you met them in a course before, seminar, or they are friends that live in another state, in another country, and there is get together again. Also, it can indicate that there might be a love or romantic thing happening with someone who is a foreign, or someone who is in a foreign country of some sort. But Venus also rules women. So even if you're a woman, Venus retrograde in the ninth house or staying there for such a long time can indicate like intensified communication with other women through some ideal, through some higher knowledge, through some course, through some webinar of some sort, through some kind of goal for the future, through something that unites you, that is more idealistic, or that's centered on certain knowledge as well. And I know that around that time, my husband might see quite a few of the ladies that he met this summer on the seminar, because we're doing another seminar, but in the States this time. So maybe some good reconnection with old friends, but it definitely, there is such a focus there. And also love. Venus naturally rules love. that is happening in a foreign country, but also some very focused activity in a foreign country, or with a trip or something like that, or with higher knowledge, you know, and you're enjoying it because it's Venus. You're invested in it because Venus rules you. You want it, you know. Yes, okay, let's say some of the bad things that might happen because Venus is retrograde, is that you start doubting and that you want to re-examine a certain direction of a certain line of philosophical beliefs, a certain line of studies, or that you might, for example, if you're trying to travel during the retrograde, in particular 15th of May to 25th of June, there might be some unexpected developments. There might be some developments that you have to try extra hard, or if you're trying to do some documents for foreign residents and things like that, or to pass some exam, you really need to put the effort during the retrograde period. But as I said, Venus rules you, so you're invested in that. And I think some of you will be really focusing on some knowledge, expansion, re-examining their beliefs. And as I said, there might be even love that's happening in a foreign country or with a foreigner, or some emotional connection or positive developments with people connected to this ninth house, more from far places and such. But also, I think Venus, the planet that rules you for such a long time, for 3-4 months in your ninth house of luck, it will make you more philosophical. It will make you more high-minded. You'll notice in this period, April to August, that you are, especially in the retrograde period, that you're taking the higher road, that you're being more forgiving, more embracing, that you find interests that are for the humanity, that are more idealistic, that are not selfish in nature, that you're embracing different cultures, that you're revisiting some cultures that you love as well. You can notice yourself also becoming more preachy in a sense. That's the house of the teacher. You might have more involvements with teachers, or with people that are teachers, or with people that are international erudites of some sort, intelligentsia, or whatever it's called. The more high-minded people, you know, more refined people, more cultured people. You yourself might invest and involve yourself in such communications, because Venus will be retrograde in Gemini, which is the ninth house, with some intensive communications with high-minded people, spiritual people, you becoming more spiritual, more high-minded, being focused on taking some courses, seminars, webinars, crash courses to expand the mind, to expand your opportunities, you know, and you'd love it. It's Venus. And there'll be a lot of communications there. Travels as well. But talking about that, we also, from May to the end of the year, and almost the whole of 2021 as well, Rahu is entering, Rahu is entering your ninth house. So it's going to really amplify this process that you're going through. This process of Venus retrograde. Venus retrograde comes around the same time that Rahu, the planet of passion and desire, and at any cost I want it, is also joining Venus. So you can notice, especially around May, June, July, that your passions are increasing because Rahu is joining your planet, May, June, July. You know, that suddenly you become desirous to have access to forbidden pleasures. Even Venus is the planet of pleasure. Rahu is more taboo, forbidden to new pleasures. You want to have access to, and you're gonna meet a lot of new women, for example, or a lot of new acquaintances, even because Venus is social planet, that are Rahuvian, foreign, that are taboo, that are, you know, excitable, that is like something you've never seen before. But Venus is also you, don't forget. So you will become a bit of a daredevil during that time. You will become a little bit more Rahuvian, almost even taking your pleasures to an extreme, almost having some temptations. One thing I have to warn you about, Rahu is the planet of the devil. But the devil, the road to, you know, to hell is a lot of fun. It's very easy there. It's kind of to do the taboo things, to do the things that are forbidden, to go all out. And sometimes we need such periods, but you know, you're going to notice yourself that also others will notice about you. Rahu is a very sexy planet. Rahu is a very charismatic planet, just like Lucifer is apparently the most beautiful angel. And it's a bit self-centered. So you're going to notice, and it's funny enough, you're also pursuing those high-minded ideals and stuff while Venus is there, but you are going to feel more excitable. You're going to feel more like, I'm going to do things I've never done before. You will be willing even to break the bosom relationships. And as I said, there might be some exciting, interesting relationship with foreigners or people from a very different social class than you because of Rahu and Venus for such a long period, for 3 months together. And you'll be involved with a lot of Rahuvian stuff, like foreign, excitable, ambitious. Rahu increases the sales drive, the ambition, at any cost. And especially this ambition will indicate in teaching. It will increase in passion to learn new knowledge. And just want to talk now a little bit about Rahu in your 9th house for a year and a half, from May to the end of the year and most of 2021. And Ketu in your 3rd house. Whatever Rahu is, we become ravenous, we become desirous of that. We become, I'm going to experiment, I'm going to try new things. And again, remember that for 3 months, Rahu is with Venus, so you might experiment with your appearance. Venus rules your 1st house. You might experiment with your relationships. Venus rules naturally relationships and money. You can just become more, all those things that I talked about. Charismatic, magnetic, risk taker. But Rahu in the 9th house generally for a year and a half indicates that, you are going to focus a lot more in areas that are unfamiliar to you. Maybe travel more to foreign states, to foreign countries. You're going to develop passion for travel, to explore new, not only physically. And Rahu gives access. Whatever it passes to, it gives access. Because the legend of Rahu is that it was a demon that wanted access into the ranks of the gods. He wanted to become immortal. And he tricked the gods. Pretended to be a beautiful woman or whatever, that he was a god or something. He drank the juice of immortality. So he gained access into the halls of the immortals, into the gods. So Rahu gives us access. Sometimes it's not in the most legal way. Sometimes it's with trickery or by faking it, or even before we're ready, because the demon was not ready to be yet a god, But sometimes because our desire is so strong, but we're still going to achieve it. Sometimes it's a bit in the, not in the long and winded way that you get to the top, but sometimes there is a tunnel that takes you straight up. This is Rahu's agenda. So when it transits to the 9th house, you can gain suddenly access to higher cultural classes, to higher, more intellectual people, access to certain wisdom and knowledge that you might not be even ready for, but you'll be excited about it. And again, with Rahu, it's fake it till you make it. And so Rahu can give you access to teachers as well, to teachers of very special, charismatic teachers of sorts. Rahu can make you passionate to explore new belief systems, foreign belief systems. Often people, when Rahu transits their 9th house, they get into some other religion or some teaching. But also it can be more, if you're not the spiritual type, you can be, 9th house is theoretical knowledge. So Rahu can infuse your passion to study what? Human design or astrology or the theory of markets or the theory of marketing or whatever. So that's where a lot of your interest will be for a year and a half. Passion for foreign countries, passion for import-export, passion for, what else is the 9th house? And access to such positions in import-export, for example, access in teaching positions. You might be way over your head, but you might start teaching, for example, when Rahu transits the 9th house. So it's that's when I did my first course, when Rahu started transiting my 9th house. And I really felt overwhelmed and way over my head, but I faked it, but it became great, I wasn't a legitimate teacher yet, but it's still one of my most liked courses. but you're willing to experiment. Wherever Rahu goes, you're like, fuck it, I'll do it. I will try it. I will experiment. I'm no longer, it's the daredevil comes in. And sometimes we need this daredevil. And you see, whatever Rahu is, Ketu is always in the opposite side. Ketu is where you kind of might lose interest, or you're not so focused there, or you become more spiritual approach there. So Ketu being in the third house from May onwards, from Libra till big part of 2021 even, means that you might lose interest towards the people around you, the everyday people. I'm not talking family. As you see, there is such a big focus on your family. I'm talking like friends, relatives, people that you're familiar with. Maybe some colleagues will disappear, maybe some friends will you lose touch with friends, maybe siblings. Sometimes people lose touch, or they stop communicating so much with siblings. Sometimes a sibling goes away, because Ketu is something where we excrete, where we let go of something. I'm not saying that you'll never see your sibling again, or some relatives or cousins, but for a little bit your focus is not there. Rahu draws you into that ninth house, which is something new, excitable, unfamiliar, foreign, and pulls you out of the mundanity of this third house. The third house is what? It's like our everyday life. The same people you see every day, the same environment, the same, the relatives, the siblings. So for some of it can mean like a sibling goes away. For some of it can mean like you get disconnected a bit, or you get disconnected with your colleagues or some friends, for example. And you kind of lose interest in the same old chit chat and gossip, and you get interested and excited in new people, foreign people, people with very different interests that pull you into a new world view, into new spirituality, into new teachings and stuff. And it's also, third house is practical knowledge. So how to do it, so how to drive a car, how to go and make a marketing campaign on Facebook, which button to click, what audience to, like how to do it exactly. Well, now you might lose, now it's not so time to be hands-on with those things and do them. Now it's time for more theoretical knowledge. Maybe the way you do things, which is the third house, your skill, the certain bag of tools and skill sets that you've developed in the past. Well, now you might feel like it's either outdated, or you'd lose interest in those old techniques that you've been using. And Rahu will spur you into new theory, into exploring new theoretical ways, experimenting and learning new knowledge. Third house is skills, ninth house is theory. So maybe you have to expand your worldview. Rahu wants you to go there with really different new worldview, with new people, and kind of leave behind a little bit the mundanity of this third house, and the old ways of doing things, the old interests, the old skills, the old friends, if not. And often I've seen when Rahu and Ketu transit third, ninth house, there can be a relocation with all this focus in the fourth house of family and place of living, and trying to find the place you belong, for example. I believe, and the third and ninth house is just moving, so there can be some very possible relocation, because it again indicates letting go of a certain familiar environment, neighborhood. Third house is neighborhoods, there's you're familiar with, and going to a place or environment that you're not familiar with in the ninth house, but you're excited about that. Rahu is hungry for it, is willing, is excitable, with your worldview is expanding. Just one thing to warn you: when Rahu transits the ninth house, we often fall fascinated for certain teachings, for certain teachers, for certain studies, but Rahu can be also tricky. So we might fall for false prophets, as they say. We might fall for, might start reading about prophecies about the future, or you might follow around a charismatic mentor who indeed can change your worldview, but there might be something tricky about them. It might be something that is materialistic underneath the whole veneer of, I'm here just to give you, spiritual growth and new worldview. There's something very ambitious there. But if you're looking for a teacher or a mentor to teach you about worldly theory, about success in the outside world, then you'll probably find very good, charismatic, and kind of go-getters, such kind of teachers. You might be drawn to such teachers as well, rather than the most spiritual, thou shalt not, and the more, uh, the more offers, you know. It's almost like such teachers can tell you that the means excuses, no, the final goal excuses the means. So just have a little bit of this, because when Rahu goes in ninth house, people get crazy about certain idea, about certain ideology, about certain teacher, about certain teaching, and then they change direction, because Rahu is not very consistent either. Or they get disappointed because they see someone who's been kind of, more like a marketing guru than an actual guru. But especially when it comes to spiritual things, this is when you have to be. But definitely you're going to want to explore new religions, new cultures and the likes. That can be very expanding. Okay, so oh yeah, I knew someone when Rahu transited the ninth house, they started living in a foreign country and started saying that they were actually from that country. So the trickery of Rahu, so they can be accepted easily into that community. But these extreme cases. All right. So then the other next event, well, now this you're gonna feel it, guys, so much. Maybe not so much the Venus thing, because it's just making a trine, but Mars. You see, it's going to be in your seventh house, starting from July till the end of the year. Mars goes retrograde, and it's directly impacting Libra with an opposition. You see, the opposite aspect is so direct. It's like me sitting in front of you, in your face. You see, the trine aspect we're talking about that Venus makes to Libra is gentle. It's like two people sitting kind of on an interview at the angle of 120 degrees. It's not invasive. With the opposition that Mars is making to you from your seventh house to your first house, it's like you have to face the music there. You can't escape it. You have to deal with those things. And Mars is a bit of a, it's known as a, let's start with the more difficult things this can bring. Because Mars is going to be retrograde in particular from September 9th till November 13th. But I'm telling you, the whole period starting from August till the end of the year, when Mars is constantly in your seventh house, whether it goes back and forth, it just intensifies from September 9th till November 13th. Keep that period in mind, that there might be some kind of more pivotal, more crisis situations around that time where you're required to put the most effort to fix a problem, because Mars is a problem fixer or energy, so we have to put extra hard energy in something. So the most dynamic part of the year for you Libras is the second part. Start August till the end, it's go, 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 but because of another person, because Mars is in your seventh house of other people, and Mars rules your seventh house. So Mars indicates a different person, another person, your marriage, your spouse, or whatever, your marriage partner, business partner, someone that you're cooperating with, or just another person that might press your buttons. In the extreme cases, such person might be impatient with you, they might be forcing you, they might be pushing you, they might be like even being a bit rude with you and telling you, get up, do something, you're too lazy or whatever. It might come from your partner, for example. Keep this in mind. It's not that the universe sends you these people just to bug you and to test your patience. It's because now it's a time when the universe wants to activate you, because the first house is you, through another person. So it might be someone telling you something that upsets you. It might be someone nudging you. It might be someone fighting with you. It might be someone challenging you, but that will put you into action the second part of the year. And it might be, for some of you, in extreme cases, might be some court case or battle that they're fighting with someone. There might be some in extreme cases, hopefully not. In extreme cases, it might be also the breakup of a relationship that it's indicated. Why is that? Because there might be escalation. You can notice like your partner and you yourself, because it's your seventh house, you become more intolerant towards relationship, more impatient, that you become more Uh, and you can notice that your partner, for in extreme cases again, that your partner, there might be more fighting with your partner. There might be more saying, words you regret to each other. I remember I had Mars retrograde in my seventh house a few years ago, 9 years. And I remember I was just starting with my then ex-husband, now currently ex-husband, and we fought for 3-4 months so much during that retrograde. But actually, this solidified our relationship, because at the end we realized what our limits are, what we don't like, and I even slapped him. I remember I was like, "Wow, where's that aggression coming from?" But we didn't break up, and we after that we didn't have that problem anymore. So again, don't think universe wants to break you up with someone if it's a good relationship that has some purpose in your life, that is on solid ground. It just means more challenging time because, for example, you might be working on a project together. That's the best, or that your partner is very busy doing something, and it's stressing more. And like for my husband, it will be the second part of the year, the craziest, because with my crazy ambitions, I want to create one of the biggest, freest softwares of astrology that everyone can use. And that will be the time when I'm go, and I can see how this can stress him. I can see how I can be a bit more short with him and temperate and push him, do this, do that. You can notice that when Mars is in your seventh house, that there's someone that orders you around more, maybe your partner, whatever, but again, it pushes you into action. It's a fantastic time to do some project together with another person or in collaboration with someone. It's a fantastic time to pursue, because the seventh house is how you pursue others as well. Maybe someone else can pursue, but you might be and having to work extra hard in the retrograde period, for example, to reach to prepare some program or something that will reach new audiences, new clients. The seventh house is others, clients, audiences, But again, in the extreme cases, there might be some fights that are happening with clients. There might be someone stressing you. There might be, if your relationship is not on a solid ground, this can be the end of a relationship for some people. I also ended a marriage on Mars square the seventh house, because when the planet in the seventh. So, if it's not the right, this is what can happen, because it's like it escalates, the energy can no longer be kind of. But usually what it will do is you will work through some issues in a relationship, and it will become even more stable after that. But again, there is a lot of activities happening in the life of your partner, or with partners, or something that you're doing. The second part of the year, don't try and do things alone, collaborate. And it's almost like someone else is your engine, someone else drives you. And if you're in business of any sort, seventh house is a business house, clients, negotiations, contracts, it's all seventh house, agreements, reaching your clients, reaching audiences. This will be a very hectic time. And the retrograde period can be quite frustrating of some negotiations, some going back and forth, and some stresses there, and some, but the final results, because Mars is in its own sign, Aries, can be, again, and you'll see it probably towards the end of the year or the start of 2021, or at least after, you're going to start seeing the results after Mars turns direct from the middle of November onwards. You're going to notice a definite improvement if there was any stressful situation, or too much too much, or reevaluation of some relationships, with clients. Sometimes you can break up relationships with clients when Mars transit the seventh house cast. If they're not the right one, then you reevaluate them, and you make a new strategy, and you approach different clients. And you can, even if you're in business, you can be quite aggressive pursuing clients. But the retrograde period, September to November, is to reevaluate and maybe fix some problems that you had with partners or clients and the sorts, and agreements, maybe to reevaluate. And you might be in a certain agreement that's really pissing you off, and you want to break it off, or you want to change it, because again, Mars wants to fix, to improve its ultimate goal, not to only destroy. But if there is no kind of ability to to fix that, basically it will destroy. That will be, it's like it can destroy a relationship, a client, can destroy a business contract, and it might be very liberating. That might be exactly what you need, because you just kind of, when Mars goes retrograde, like, I've had enough, I can't stay in this contract, or I've had enough, I don't want this kind of clients, or I've had enough, I can't be in this type of relationship. So and you blow off, or your partner can do that to waken you up. But again, let's see what the most positive effect of this is, might be, which you will see towards the end, after Mars turns direct. So towards from December, possibly, you're gonna see the results. Is that you're gonna, first of all, you might win some battle with someone. Second, you might have gone and reached out to larger audiences and restructured the audiences or the clients that you reach out to, and even more aggressively pursue different types, very different types of audience after this period, and access new client base, for example. Another way is that you might have, often it can indicate starting some relationship before even Mars goes retrograde if you're single, and it will be with someone who is Mars-like in nature, maybe an Aries or a younger person, or very youthful, a sporty person. In worst case scenario, someone more aggressive. But depending what aspects Mars is doing in your chart in particularly, I'll know if it's someone more aggressive or it's someone just more excitable, youthful, a rock and roll guy or girl, tom girl, sporty person. And it can also indicate, for example, an intense working out period with a partner that happens. I've seen another person who got Mars retrograde in the 7th house, and I'm like, what happened? He said, oh, we started working out with my girlfriend. We took a personal, and not during the retrograde, you usually started before that. And during the retrograde, you dig deep to make it part of your everyday reality, to make the extra effort. And they took a coach and they started working out together, because he said we were starting to fight and stuff, and they kind of this is how they transformed it. So you see, it's not necessary that the end of relationship, fighting every day with people. There is a high and low manifestation, and the best way to use it in the higher manifestation is to do something with a partner, something that's physically demanding, some project that takes a lot of your energy, or if it's not with someone else, that is targeted towards someone else. And again, for people in business, that can be a big breakthrough year towards the end, but first it will create some complications that you have to review certain things and change them, and some frustrations that can push you into changing certain things. And you have to be a bit careful who will feel this the most. All this Mars opposition that I talked about, especially Libras that are born from 15 to 30 degrees, basically the last 15 degrees of Libra. That means born from the 6th of October to around the 23rd of October. They will feel this the most, this stressful that will come from Mars, this opposition with other people, but as well, these people taking them out of their comfort so they can do something together, or they can change everything that we talked about. The Libras born from 6th to 23rd of October, basically from 15 degrees to 30 degrees. And that's my husband. So I'll probably be a ball buster. I hope not, but I'm an Aries anyway. But it will also indicate like a very strong presence of an Aries around you, someone very driven, ambitious, go, that we talked about. So yeah, I don't know which way it's going to affect you. If you're in a relationship that is literally not good for you, it can be the end of it, but also it can indicate, as I said, the start of a new relationship a little bit before the retrograde, maybe in the year before that, with someone who is very Martial in nature, like I described, and who eventually during the retrograde you have to figure it out together, and then maybe it will become even better relationship, or we'll see. Okay, so then we're going to go through the Mercury retrograde periods. For you, the first Mercury retrograde period, for everyone, it's happening from February the 16th till March the 9th. So even the week before February the 16th, when people feel it the most, the shadow is when you're going to start noticing those things. It's happening in your 6th house. So half of February, first 10 days of March, 16th February, March the 9th, Mercury retrograde in your 6th house. And I'll tell you that the whole February and March will be under this influence because Mercury stays there in your sixth house. It indicates that you have to work on some project behind the scenes. Sixth house is work. Some of you might want to re-examine their health habits. Some old health issue might come up to the surface, so you can address it by changing your diet, by changing medications, or or you might some people might go and revisit the doctor for a second opinion, or you might be working extra hard on fixing their health or something like that, or putting a lot of kind of a plan, and because Mercury is to create plans for your health, for workout routine, for diet, for nutrition of some sort. Also, sixth house is work, so that can be a bit more stressful at work, where you have to redo certain project, where you have to put a lot of your efforts in solving some work issue, but it's usually busy time for work, or also it's order, not organization. You might want around that time to reorganize your space, your office, your home, because sixth house is to order, to organize. You might be in the sixth house, the house of service, so you might be having some issues with employees, or in the place of service that you are. You might be having some issues in the sense that they have to redo it a few times. For example, you hire someone to do your carpets or whatever, or anyone that you hire is your employee. Anyone that is, everyone that works for you, your manager, whatever, they're your employee, or you're a business owner. Or maybe you will be re-examining, do I want to keep this person on my team or no? You might be doing interviews and researching to get new people to work for you. And when Mercury moves direct, you'd conclude that period and probably would have new employees, so you'd have regrouped your employees, or regrouped their tasks, so change something there, or maybe you'd complete some project that you were doing with employees, or maybe someone you've hired after the retrograde period will finally complete something they were hired for, while during the retrograde period they were going over it back and forth and such things. And if you're the employee, it means some tasks that you have to do. All right, and then Mercury goes retrograde again from June the 18th to July the 12th. So the whole June and the whole July, Mercury will be in Cancer, which is your 10th house. Now you're going to feel this very strong, especially if you're Libra, from 5 to Libra Sun, Moon arising from around 5 to 15, 16 degrees. I'll say even 4 till 16, 17 degrees, because that's the degrees that, Mercury basically is going to be here, retrograde here. Let's show you Mercury in your 10th house of career. So this is the period, again, repeating, June and July, especially during the retrograde period, 18th of June to July the 12th, that you are having to work extra hard. Again, this is another house of work, but this is more like where you're visible, when you're not doing something behind the scene, like in the sixth house, we're doing something for the whole world to see. So you might have some extra responsibilities there. You have to, oh, funny enough, I think this is when we're going to do the conference. So my husband will be the manager there, 10th house, Mercury retrograde. So he'll have to, when Mercury transits to 10th house, you have to basically gain access to all of your, for a focus period of usually around a month, where you have to use all your skills and intellectual resources and all your knowledge, which is what Mercury is, and all your communication abilities to organize something, to manage something, to do some event, some work, some job, So usually, and it's visible. You're visible, you're recognized for that, you're seen, every action of yours is seen. So sometimes a person might be working on some mercurial project very hard during that, when Mercury retrograde. It might be sale or business or administrative work or planning, organizing, marketing, all kind of white collar jobs are Mercury jobs, where you use skill and knowledge, anything, software, technology, communication, media, administration, emails, all of those things. So increased increased focus in such area. Of course, also during Mercury retrograde, you find mistakes that we've done and we have to fix them. And not only mistakes, but we have to prepare to have a second plan. So everything might not go according to your plans in regards to your career or something that you're doing that's some responsibility that you're doing there. And you might have to redo it another again or do it in a different way, especially during the Mercury period, retrograde period. But after, and it puts more stress on you. Yes, it does. You have what you planned it to happen, this, and something goes wrong, even if it's like someone is late, or certain material is missing, or whatever, certain email is missing. Well, it gets more stressful, but it doesn't mean you won't have wonderful results. Actually, the results will be very visible. Often you finally see what the results are by the time Mercury turns direct, which is July 12th. But sometime around June and July, there is more stress with authority figures, more in your career, in your worldly responsibilities. But the final result is that you get more recognition after that, and you do something of more substance. And it usually and in extreme cases, might be someone who is rethinking their career, someone who is, for example, decide to quit because of a situation escalates in their career, and they're like, okay, I've had enough. But it's usually something that has been festering for a long time, that you've been kind of burying under the carpet, and you'll be like, oh, I'll hold on more, and then Mercury goes retrograde in your 10th house and kind of blow up on your boss, and you're like, I can't hold it. It's not going to be, it's not going to be something that suddenly brand new that happens. You decide, that's it, I'm quitting my job or whatever, I'm firing. It's going to be something that's been a build up, if anything like that happens at all, but then it bursts out, and Mercury is so close to the earth, you can't keep it shut up anymore. Sometimes people have to go back to an old project and redo it. Sometimes people get in touch with old authority figures. So sometimes some institution can get in touch with you when Mercury is retrograde in the 10th house for something that they need from you, and you have to do it or whatever. Sometimes you have to work very close with the boss and use a lot of your communication skills and a lot of, kind of delicate maneuvering, which Mercury is great at, and adaptive maneuvering with an authority figure and such like. But usually, if you have any mercurial projects that I talk, writing, speaking, media, communications, information, emails, bureaucratic, administrative work, it will be a very hectic period around that time, where you have to be prepared to, fix some mistakes, come up with plan B, C, D. But the final results can be 3 times more powerful and lasting. And then we're going to have the last Mercury retrograde. And that's from October 13th till November 3rd. And part of it is happening in Libra, in your sign. I want to speak mostly because of it, and it's happening here, basically. So that Mercury retrograde will be felt also very strong for Libras, but only for a small number of Libras. Libras who are born from the 19th till the 24th of October, which with their sun sign. Mercury will go retrograde over their sun. Or Libras who have their sun, moon, or ascendant from 26 till 30 degree in Libra. So October 13th till November 3rd, again, very intense time of mercurial activity, business, communications, negotiations. You see, they say when Mercury goes retrograde to stop all those things. Not at all. The opposite is actually true. Mercury is 3 times closer to the earth. It doesn't mean it's easier, it's more difficult. And because you see things that go wrong and you have to fix them, but you have to use 3 times more of your skills, communication abilities. You might be working on completing the project and having to redo some project behind the scenes connected to marketing, advertising, writing, speaking, communication, any kind of a business project, commercial activity of any sort, any product. Mercury is all the skills we use to do our work, basically. So you'll be like a lot of mind work, a lot of planning, organizing that goes into that, replanning and organizing. Something from the past that you started earlier comes and you have to fix it, put final touches. And I've been telling my husband, when Mercury goes retrograde in Libra next year, that's before the pre-launch of the brand new Astrolab, everything, And I told him, you have so much mercurial things to do, emails and stuff. So I've told him, so we're not going on holidays in such period. So we can do all this go, 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 because it's Mercury's, all those things, you know. But sometimes in extreme cases, again, Mercury going retrograde over your sun, moon, or ascendant can make you, so let's see, preparing for some, editing, redoing, doing it over and over, putting a lot of your efforts there, using 3 times more of your intelligence, skills, and communication, increased flow of such information and stuff, but also delays there, delays having to overcome those obstacles, fix certain things. But also on some extreme cases when you can rethink certain relationships again, because Mercury makes you go, when it goes retrograde, to really go back, and someone from the past can get in touch with you. This is nothing bad, you know, you can meet, you can see some friends or acquaintances, which is Mercury, or colleagues or clients can come back to you. You can hear from them that you haven't heard from during the Mercury retrograde. It can be fantastic. It can be great. They can bring some opportunity, you know, from someone you haven't heard from, or you can connect with them. But in some extreme cases, I can give you as an example, when Mercury went retrograde over my Sun and Venus a few years ago, I found out some things, because Mercury brings information that was existing but you are not aware of, about someone I've been working with, which kind of shocked me and made me very sad. And I broke paths with them, and it was, there were threats from that person. There were, you know, there was back and forth on the severance package, whatever. But it was a very stressful period, because you reevaluate certain relationships, certain things that you haven't had the courage to say come to the surface, and you say them and you blur them out, but maybe that's what is needed from you to do. And these things have to be taken out on the surface, but that's a very extreme case. So hopefully not, you know, and also because Mercury is retrograde in Libra, it's more diplomatic. It's maybe about reevaluating certain relationships of sort. You know, fixing something, it doesn't have to mean breaking it fully, but some important conversations have to go over some things in the past and how you want it to be more fair and balanced for both of you. So you'll be doing that around the Mercury retrograde, October, November. And Mercury goes retrograde in that for a bigger part of the October 13th to November 3rd, in your second house. So for a lot of you, for all of you Libras, there will be some revision of your finances and resources. I advise you in that Mercury retrograde not to be prepared for certain extra expenses, but also maybe to have to invest in something to fix it, to make it better, maybe some spending that will come because of that. Also, not to invest in something totally new during this period, because finances can be a bit destabilized during the retrograde period, you know, because it's reassessment, reorganizing of finances, rather than going and investing your money in something totally new. And it can also indicate that some old things and possessions, you can try and bring them back to life, or reorganize your wardrobe and throw out certain things, get rid of certain possessions and stuff like that. All right, and then finally, we're going to talk about Pluto. And that's for a very small number of you Libras, because Pluto and Neptune, Uranus, they're not affecting you this year. They're not making any aspect to you, Sun, Moon, or Ascendant. So you're out of the Neptune and Uranus planets, which can be overwhelming. But some of you are going into your Pluto transit, which is usually once in a lifetime transit. If you're going to have Pluto transiting your square, in your case, square is a bit more challenging aspect. 90 degrees, your Sun, Moon, or Ascendant, it's never going to repeat again in your lifetime. We usually have no more than 2 or 3 Pluto transits in our life, hard Pluto transits. And you're going to be going through, some of you, only those born from the 16th till the 19th of October. So if your Sun is from the 16th, your Sun sign is in Libra, and you're born from 16th till the 19th of October, you're going to have a Pluto square transit, which means that if your Ascendant or Moon in Libra, if you're from 22 to 25 degrees in Libra, your Ascendant 22 to 25 degrees in Libra, Pluto will be basically here in your 4th house, squaring Sun, Moon, or Ascendant here in Libra. You know, that 90-degree aspect. only for the small number of people. A lot of you Libras have passed through Pluto already. Maybe you identify with what I'm talking about. But basically 22 to 25 degrees Libra are starting it for the first time. Maybe 22, actually, they had it already 2019. So because Pluto transits last 2 years over 1 degrees. It drags because it's Pluto does a very deep psychological restructuring of you. It might not be obvious to others, but you'll be a totally different, transformed person after this Pluto transit to your Sun, Moon, or Ascendant. It's so profound that even you don't realize what's happening. It's basically after Pluto transits, people stop drinking, people leave marriages, people start different careers, people something that you've been doing for life, you stop wanting it. That's final, and you don't want to go back to that anymore. Usually, if Pluto is squaring your ascendant, sometimes a relationship can finish. If it finishes, there is no going back to it. My husband just had that. Our relationship didn't finish, but then when Pluto was squaring his ascendant, he met me, and he basically total transformation in relationships. He had 2 children, change of home and everything, and it's often when Pluto squares your ascendant. Let's speak by ascendant now. You might meet, and the sun or moon. You meet. You can have more Plutonian people in your life, for example. People that are. There might be someone that might be more manipulative, or some power struggle that is happening with someone in extreme cases, someone dangerous. But what are those people trying to do? Or someone power hungry, control freak, there's power struggle that starts happening between you and your marriage partner, some other person. Sometimes in extreme cases, even threat. But what's the purpose, again, of that? To gain your power back. The ultimate, what Pluto wants to do when Pluto transits in crisis, as they call them, is if you've been allowing someone to bully you, or maybe many people in your life. Now someone appears who is a uber bully or uber manipulator, or your partner starts acting out like that, or you feel like you're feeling like that, like you would kind of start, extremes of power. So what is that? So you can balance power. This is what the ultimate goal. So you can use power in a moderate and in a healthy way, neither too much you bullying and manipulating someone. And often people, when they have Pluto transits, they go drawn to play some game, to play some psychological game with another person. Usually no one wins out of this. The ultimate purpose of a Pluto transit is to have a healthy expression of power. So if someone's been taking your power, or many people, some substance or something, when Pluto squares your sun, moon, or ascendant, first of all, you might feel like someone is or something is taking even more your power, that you are frozen, that you're fearful. But because it's a 2-year process, what happens is that you go and confront those fears, and then you suddenly realize that the thing that you are most afraid of, actually you're stronger than it. And what happens at the end of this, usually towards the 3rd hit, towards the final hit, towards after a year and a half, you gain your power back, and you never allow, you take no bullshit. You never allow someone to take your power. You never allow someone to manipulate you. You never, because sometimes we're naive and we're like, forgive or whatever. But it's been someone, for example, who has been, who's you basically been enabling to continue to be an asshole or whatever, or they've been harming predatory energy. So you cut off a lot of predatory energy from your life when Pluto squares your sun, moon, or ascendant. Eventually, you get empowered eventually to someone else who is naturally power, kind of control freak, They try and control everything. They can go out of their head that they can't control things. And they can, the goal for them is to kind of the opposite. The goal for them is not to take more power. The goal for them is to create healthy power. So it's a very subtle psychological process. Many times it can be accompanied by powerful outside developments. But what really helps is psychological counseling, digging, because Pluto presses on the astral body. The astral body is where we store in our subconscious old traumas from past lifetimes, incarnations from this lifetime, and we don't remember those things. And Pluto, when Pluto transit comes, it starts pressing on the astral body, and it's kind of starts squeezing on the surface all traumas and painful experiences from the past. You might even start remembering past lifetime or no. It just, what happens is people suddenly start feeling intense feelings, overwhelming feelings, fears, paranoias, anger, feelings that you never thought you were capable of. And you're like, this is not me. Jealousies, furies, anything extreme, anything of the most base, almost like sometimes primal fear, panic attacks can happen. I don't want to scare you. I'm in the middle of a Pluto transit. I just started having panic attacks, but Pluto transits are known, especially if you haven't dealt with feelings from the past and you don't know what it's from, it escalates like intense feelings. So what's happening, your astral body is being squeezed. And either panic attacks, anxieties, fears, paranoia sometimes, intense feelings of anything, like I have another friend that's going through a Pluto transit and she says like, never thought I'll start counseling. I'm going to go crazy otherwise. What are those feelings? Where are they coming from? She remembered being raped. She remembered a lot of things came up, and someone appears in her life who is love-hate. When he's happy, he tells her, they're so intimate, and when he's not, he threatens to pour acid on her face to find her and whatever. It's kind of some intense control freak type of thing. I'm not saying this extreme will happen, don't worry. It's sometimes often just psychological that you have to, the past trauma is being squeezed out of you. It's good to work with a psychologist, to study astrology, to understand the really deep reasons of that. But even if you are not going to dig deep, it's all those painful traumas from the past, are all those complexes that you didn't know, that were like an infection in your blood, like keeping you a constant low temperature, fever, for example. They go in one healing crisis over a year, maybe in a few episodes, and you can feel like having super high fever, not literally fever, but you can feel like you're gonna explode and erupt. And actually what's happening is cleansing process. And a lot of people even start vomiting sometimes, or have like an episode of vomiting, or go take ayahuasca to experience, to have deep psychological transformation, or have some very extreme experience that makes them rethink their whole life. And not even having to rethink it, it just comes to them. It cannot carry on like that. I'm leaving the past. So ultimately, Pluto rules the column to excrete all the toxins of your psychological, emotional, even physical. Often people go on some really extreme fasting, detoxing, becoming vegan, starting some really, extreme, not in a bad way, but like a big detox, physical, psychological, emotional. By the end of this process, you're a brand new person. You're like a clean slate. You are released from such a psychological burden, but the process of that is like a healing crisis. You feel you're dying while actually you're being made alive. After Pluto transits, people say they feel the happiest they've ever felt. They feel like they've come out finally on the surface and are living life. Before that, they thought they were living okay, but something always didn't feel right. Something always felt dark, or, something always felt like they were blocked in some way to experience the full lightness and joy. And during the Pluto crisis, as they call them, Pluto transits, all this darkness comes to the surface, and then you're liberated, and you're a new person, and you no longer have interest in the old things. So sometimes it's accompanying of ending of marriages, changes, total changes of career, because old you is dead, a big layer of you has died, and a new, much fresher and newer and excited about life person comes out. You start seeing life. That's how they describe it, like a child, as if you had a rebirth, and you're like, wow, it's so beautiful, it's so interesting again. But sometimes first you go through some crisis. Hopefully, I don't want to scare you. It's like they say, sometimes you can come close to death, or you can think a lot about death, not you dying, but around you. You can start researching the occult, life after death. I've seen some people go through a Pluto transit, just like they just start digging deep into astrology, life between lives, and such things. And that's enough, No outer traumas have to come to them to make them go introspective. And if you're already watching an astrology video, you know what? you're already interested into these invisible things that Pluto is trying to make you do as well. To see that there is much more, it's not just what's on the surface. And people start getting interested in crime, in psychology, in watching, like CII and investigation research. For some, it's a period of intense research, psychological work, digging deep. For others, it's a period of big transformation. For others, is for everyone, basically. And for others, it's a period of big, sexual increase of a kind of intensification of sexual desires, almost obsessive of some sort. Very strong passions appear. And you can take that strong passion and obsession that appears during Pluto transit and direct it towards, instead of something grimy and dirty and shameful, because sometimes even addiction, if you have some dark like sexual desires, they can rise, or some dark addictions and something unnatural, they all become intensified when Pluto is around. But people on the path of self-improvement, basically, this is when they remove it from their life. When it becomes so much, they're like, okay, this cannot go, I'll break up with you, And also Pluto brings a lot of willpower. So you can achieve tremendous feats of willpower that you didn't have the power to do before. So that's the positive of it. You can create a company. You can go and climb Mount Everest. You can stop drinking and start working out and start running marathons. Something that you never thought you had. The power of Pluto will give you the power of it, with accompanying, and it's as a result of this accompanying big transformations happening within you, and you taking real power rather than fake power over others or over controlling of. So you start controlling yourself. True power is to have control over yourself, over your emotions, over your desires. So this is the ultimate goal of Pluto, rather than control over others or others controlling you. So with that saying, thank you so much, Libra. Do check our written horoscopes as well. They're way more specific month by month, the written ones. They're not like all over the place like mine. And they tell you month by month, in a very practical way, what to expect. That's how my teacher writes them. Nothing emotional, very, very business, like tuck, 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 tuck. I really like her style because I'm the other extreme. So anyway, I love you so much, Libra. Thank you. And happy 2020. Oh, what an intense and dynamic year for Libra, with all their houses getting activated, relationships, family. Whew, it will be a year to remember.